Hello everyone and welcome to I Open TCGs, the channel where I sometimes open TCGs. Today we have another PowerPoint video of 5 unforced errors FFG has made and how I think they could fix them in the future. Now this video was supposed to be released around a month ago. So if you're wondering like why is he releasing this video now, that is because I just never got around to making it, and with set 5 spoilers coming out in full force, I just wanted to get these points out there while I can still be a little pathetic about it. Now, this video is going to be a long one. So if you're not used to these types of videos, think of it as a long solo podcast. Now, before I get into the 5 things that I think FFG can change, I do want to preface value versus investment. All right. I will be talking a lot about value in this video, and I want to make sure people understand that caring about the value of the cards is not the same thing as thinking of cards as an investment. Now, they are tied together, but they are not the same thing. Value is in the DNA of TCGs and all randomized products. Whether you like it or not, this is not a living card game. It is a TCG. Value is important to TCGs. Now, even stripping away the collecting and the limited quantity part, people want their money that they spend to feel like it was worth spending that money, right? That is in part why value matters. It's not just looking up on TCG Player and like, ha ha ha, it's going up now. That's not exactly it. It's right. Like if you spend $20 on a game, you want that game to be worth to you $20 worth of entertainment, right? Same thing goes for this game. Now, I have an entire video dedicated to talking about this, but I want to repeat this because I know there's going to be comments in this video saying like, oh, this dude just cares about, he just wants everything to go up. That is literally not what I'm talking about. They are different things. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about the first unforced error that FFG has made, and that is bad legendaries. Now, bad legendaries are unavoidable. It happens in every game, right? Whether it's Magic and you get some bad Mythics, or Flesh and Blood, you get some bad Majestics. There's going to be some bad cards that are for super niche circumstances. Maybe they're not good right now in the current metagame. Maybe they're just designed badly. Bad legendaries are unavoidable. The issue, though, is the number of bad legendaries, and in relation to the average value of those legendaries and the lack of time for these legendaries to improve due to the aggressive style of rotation that Star Wars has. Now in set 4, they did increase the number of legendaries from 16 to 20, and they did increase the hit rate, all while at the same time releasing Carbonite boxes. Now again, I made a whole video warning about the consequences of this happening, and the results are in. The overall value of set 4 legendaries still suck. But given how I was supposed to make this video a month ago, we now have a whole nother month's worth of data, and this is what it looks like right now. All right, so these are the legendary prices on TCG Player low. Again, I am an American, so I use TCG Player. Card market might be very different if you're European. These are TCG Player lows updated May 21st, which is when I'm recording this. Let's look at all the sets as they are right now. So we have set 1. Set 1, widely known as the most powerful set, the most important set. You can see that in the legendary. So this is a list of all the legendaries and kind of the general buckets of price, right? So there's 2 legendaries less than $3, 2 legendaries between $3 to $5, 2 and 5 to 10, 5 legendaries from 10 to 20, and of course 5 legendaries that are $20+. The average legendary, again, this is base legendary for set 1, is $16.42. Pretty good. Then of course you have set 2. And you can see the massive drop in the quality of the legendary. Now, there's a lot of things going on, but looking at it from the face of it, set 2's got 8 legendaries that are less than $3, 2 from 3 to 5, 1 from 5 to 10, 3 from 10 to 20, and only 2 that are 20 plus. And the average is $8.18 for a base legendary, about half of what it is for set 1. And of course, a set 2 box, if you were to buy it right now, is not half of a set 1 box. So that's actually, I think, pretty okay for set 2, weirdly. Because all things are relative, we know what's coming up next, set 3. Now, set 3, the ugly stepchild, we got 9 legendaries less than $3, 3 between 3 to 5, 2 from 5 to 10, 2 from 10 to 20, and of course, no legendaries currently right now that are worth $20 or more. But only having 9 that are less than $3 is not enough because they are so low that the average legendary for set 3 is $3.51. Now, a lot of commentary that I've heard is, well, it's not set 3. And while that is true, set 3 is not the norm, right? Set 3 is an abomination. I really hope people don't forgive how bad the set 3 was. But as you can see here, not very good. And now finally we get to set 4. Now set 4 has 13 legendaries that are $3 or less. It has 1 from $3 to $5, 2 from $5 to $10, and 4 legendaries between 10 and 20. And of course, it also does not have any legendaries that are $20 or more. Now, there are some other numbers there. I'll talk about that in a second. But the average base legendary cost for set 4 is $5. Now, there's a lot of reasons for this. I'll talk, of course, about that in this video. But I do want people to look here and understand that before set 4 came out, I heard so much, it's going to be a strong set. It's going to be great. It's going to be just like a set 1. You know, it's not going to be like set 2 and 3. They admitted they had issues with those. Like set 4 is going to be a return to form. Look at how different this is. All right. It's not just the average compared to the average. It's also this mental feeling, right? If you open a box of set 4 and you hit a legendary, 13 of them are less than $3, right? Hitting a legendary does not feel very legendary. It feels especially bad when, if you look across here, you have 8 in set 2, 9 in set 3, 13 in set 4. That is 30 legendaries that are less than $3. That is 30 legendaries out of a total 68 legendaries. That's 45% or 44% of the legendaries that are worth less than $3. Again, there's always some bad legendaries out there, but it is so heavily skewed in Star Wars, it is kind of crazy. I also want to compare the hit rates because the hit rates did change, right, in set 4, like I said earlier. So in set 1 and 2 and 3, the average base legendary rate, again, not including foils, not including hypers, not including hyper foils, just the base legendary hit rate for set 1 through 3 was around 3 per box. And for set 4, that's now changed to become 4.8, right? They added more legendaries. They made them easier to hit. Now, what does that mean? If we multiply those together, that means on average in a box right now for EV purposes, for set 1, 49 bucks of that, like 49 bucks of whatever you buy a set 1 box for is where the legendary worth comes from, right? For set 2, it's 24 bucks. For set 3, it's $10.50, which is crazy. And for set 4, it's also around 24 bucks. So that means that for just base legendaries, set 4 falls very similarly to set 2, a set that has actually gone up a decent amount recently, but is overall still considered a fairly weak set. Again, anything compared to set 3 is good, but especially compared to set 1, as you can see here, the price is much lower. It's about half as much as for set 1. And again, the box of set 1 does not cost double what box 2 is. The price of a set 2 box is not half the price of a set 1 box. Now, that just may mean set 1 is a really good time to open it right now, which I think it might be at the price it is right now. But it just shows you in comparison to other sets how bad the value of a set 4 box is right now, especially with the legendaries. But that is not the only thing that changed for set 4. As mentioned in a video I made before, Carbonites not only crunch legendaries, they crunch all forms of legendaries. They crunch the foils, the hypers, the hyperfoil legendaries. And you can see that very clearly in this chart as well. Because even for set 2, even for set 3, the hyperfoils are still around double what a regular version of a card is. Sometimes much more. Like, for example, in set 3, it's $3.50 for an average base L, but it's $13 for an average hyperfoil, right? But all in all, you can say that for the first 3 sets, there is still some multiplier when you hit a hyper, when you hit a hyperfoil. There is a big multiplier there. Whereas in set 4, the multiplier is almost completely gone except for hyperfoils. And even hyperfoils from $5 to $7, it's not double, $2 extra, right? So there is a jump there, but hopefully you can see how much smaller that jump is compared to all the other sets. And then you add in the fact that showcases have also crashed because Carbonites have crunched those. And you can see that the average price of a showcase goes from $160 to $156 to $141 down to $90. That is a huge amount to go down by, right? Like even for set 3, 141 to 90, that's $52 that it's gone down by. Now, I named this section Bad Legendaries, but I also wanted to show proof of how bad the crunch was that Carbonites have caused. Carbonites have made the legendaries much lower, and they have made showcases much lower, all leading to bad value for the box. It's probably too late now. I probably should have called this section Legendary Value instead of Bad Legendaries, but bad legendaries do cause part of this problem as well. Now, how do we fix this? Now, there is an elephant in the room, and that elephant is the rares. The rares for set 4 are significantly higher than the rares for set 1. There's a lot of very powerful rares. Part of the reason they're so expensive is because nobody was really opening regular boxes, especially compared to previous sets. But I would guess it's an order of magnitude different in the amount of regular boxes that were open from set 3 compared to set 4. So part of the reason why the rares are so expensive in set 4 is there's just not as many of them compared to previous sets, but it's also because there's some just really powerful rare cards. And that brings us to what can be fixed. What can we do to help out the legendary value, to help out bad legendaries, right? The first one is, well, print better legendaries. I really don't understand why FFG is so against printing stronger legendaries. They don't all have to be bangers, but I feel like on average, when the majority of the legendaries are $3 or less, you have made a mistake. Now, I know that there are other things to think of, like draft and limited. I get that. I'm not asking for them all to be 10 out of 10 bangers, but just give us like 2 or 3 better ones per set, and it really can affect the entire set's value, right? Not just the regular boosters, but also the Carbonites as well. But the crazy thing is that there are banger cards in the set. They are just printed as rares. There are plenty of rares that are better than 75% of the legendaries out there. And if you just switch 2 or 3 of them each set, it would add so much value to the box. Like if Luke Skywalker was a legendary, and that would help a lot. Or if Maul was a legendary for set 2, people didn't understand that. I still don't understand that. That would also help with a lot of value. Is it a good thing that Star Wars prints powerful cards at different rarities? Yes, it is good. There are pros to doing this. There are pros to splitting up powerful cards to some be common, some to be uncommon, some be rares. There are pros to that, but there are also cons. We are seeing a very blatant flashing light that says these are the cons when the legendaries are just not very good. But it's not always about numbers as well. It's about psychology, right? I open a lot of boxes, right? I'm a Whatnot streamer. I open hundreds of boxes. Now, are the people that buy from me normal buyers? Absolutely not. They're pure degenerates. But there is also a psychological part to box openings that really helps, right? It's not just pure math. But the other part is when you open a box, and let's say there are 5 legendaries in that box, it really psychologically sucks where there's a huge chance that most of them are worth $3 or less. And in some cases, they might be worth $1 or less, right? Psychologically, that just feels terrible. So not only does it help with the actual value, but it also helps psychologically when you can be excited about legendaries again. People are just not very excited about hitting legendaries in Star Wars. Now, I did mention this before, but it's great that the jump to lightspeed rares are worth a decent amount, right? The average is $1.44. I mentioned that one of the main reasons is that regular boxes are poisonous and nobody really wants to open them. And that brings me to the second thing that was an unforced error that FFG can still change in the future. And that is regular boxes are now poisonous. Now, I talked about this in my Carbonite box product review, but once you open a Carbonite, I swear 90% of the people don't ever want to open a regular booster box again. Like, why would you? It's a 1 in 12 chance at a showcase, which the Carbonites have crushed in value. The multiplier on the foils and hypers and hyperfoils have also been completely crushed. The legendaries have been crushed, and the market price of the box continues to be barely above distro price. Now, even before set 4 released, many people, including me, have said that regular boxes are terrible. The value of them have been terrible, and they really need to do something to fix that. But for set 4, because of Carbonites, instead of fixing it, they've essentially just doubled down. They have sacrificed regular boxes to make money with Carbonite boxes. Because right now, despite how hype set 4 is and all the people talking, all sorts of hype shit in the beginning, boxes now are currently $69, which again is better than set 3. That's not a great benchmark to always compare to. $69, which after fees on TCG Player is below distribution pricing. That means that the price that the store buys it from is not that much lower than $69, right? FFG is saying, we're just never going to make this box better. You're just going to need to eat the cost of this box to buy the Carbonites, and that's what's going to make you money. And you know why they do that? Because that is what Magic does right now. And we will talk a little bit more about comparing things to Magic again in a future slide. But right now, the ecosystem for Star Wars Unlimited is not the same thing as the ecosystem for Magic. So by copying what somebody else has done, that doesn't really help the current situation. The point I'm trying to make here is that adding Carbonites into the ecosystem, as mentioned in the last slide, they have significant cons. And we are seeing the consequences of these cons right now in this video. Now, what can we do for these regular booster boxes to help them? I'm going to talk a little short here because a lot of these fixes we will also talk about in the future here, but regular boxes should be the product to have the showcase rate increased rather than the Carbonites. That's just one tiny thing that they should have done in the beginning. There needs to be a reason for people to open regular boxes, and increasing the rate in the Carbonites was definitely not the way they should have done it. I think it's very clear with how cheap showcases are right now. Instead of the Carbonite increase, the increase, if anything, should have been in the regular boxes. Now, there should also be another format for new alt arts, right? Prestiges can be exclusive to Carbonites, but there should be additional formats that you can get in both the regular and Carbonite boosters. Like, for example, alt arts of bases, alt arts of iconic events, iconic characters, or just plain old take the strong cards from the set and give them alt arts. That would really help with all sorts of value. And we will talk about that a lot more in a future slide about what can be changed with Carbonites. But the idea here is that you need to make the baseline level of the product good, or at least better. Right now, the baseline level of the product is terrible. The desire to open them is low. The reason to open them is low. And it's actually important for the baseline to be worth something, because the Carbonite stuff, the extra value stuff, are always going to be multipliers of what the regular stuff is, right? Again, as mentioned, when the regular version, foil version, hyper version, and hyperfoil version have barely any differences between them, what's the point for any of that? And that's what we'll talk about next, right? Before you can start adding new formats, you're going to need to remove some other formats. And that brings us to the third thing that was an unforced error by FFG, and that is foils. Foils are a complete failure. They've always been a failure, and they're especially so now that Carbonites come out, and half of the Carbonite packs are foils. So going back to when the game came out, I mentioned, a lot of people mentioned, and you can see the problems here now with what I showed you in this video, but 4 versions of the same card was never smart. It instantly dilutes the options, and this decision has only gotten worse because of the Carbonite boxes. Carbonites have crushed the multiplier of all of these versions. Some cards in set 4 launched with 9 different versions. Like, there are some ships with 4 base versions, 3 prestige versions, and 2 weekly play versions all in the same set. That is absolutely ludicrous. When people make fun of Magic and they're like, oh, there's so many versions of the cards, at least the versions of the cards are kind of cool and there's a lot of, and hard to get. Jump to Lightspeed launched certain cards with 9 versions, and even if not 9, 7 versions for all the other prestige cards. It is crazy. No wonder there's no real difference between the value of them. No wonder they're not that desirable. It's too many versions. And the other problem is that the game has very quickly become a player-driven game. And what that means is the demand, like the set collector demand, has gone down a lot in relation to how many cards are out there. Now, there are a lot of collectors that did come back for set 4. I saw it firsthand. But compared to the amount of cards out there, the amount of Carbonite boxes out there, the demand was not nearly enough to absorb most of these cards. And that is why a lot of them don't have much extra value to them. But the main culprit, the one that we can all at least all agree on and point our fingers at, is the foils, right? Foils have always been very terrible quality in Star Wars Unlimited. The colors are really muddy. The foiling can be really muddy. And of course, very often they come completely pringled right out of the pack. There are competitive players that just refuse to use foils because they pringle so bad and that you can't use them in tournaments. Foils are terrible and they should be removed. But the problem is that they need buffer room in the Carbonite packs. And right now, those foils are the buffer room. Now, how do we fix the foil situation? Now, they will never do this. They will never do this. It's much too late. But in an ideal world, regular versions of the card and foil versions of the card need to be removed. Hyperspace should have always been the default version of the card, and hyperspace foils are supposed to be the sprinkles. At least right now, hypers are pretty much the same price as the regular cards anyways. This helps because now there are less variants, right? You're going from 4 down to 2 for the base ones. And so the value can be more focused, right? If you want to bling out your deck, the only way to do it for 80% of the cards is to do it with hyperfoils, which automatically gives them more demand. But I think it's much too late for them to do that. I wish they would. I know they won't. So at least they can remove foils. I think the community overall hates them so much. They could definitely get rid of it. Even if they put in regular cards into the Carbonites, that's fine. Like for the longest period of time when Carbonites were really pumping, the foils were worth less than the regular versions because so many people didn't want them. I mean, the obvious answer as well is to not have them so pringled, but you know, even companies like WotC cannot figure out how to make foils that don't pringle. I will say though that the weekly play, whoever's been producing the weekly play packs with the surge foiling, those foils have, especially for set 4, are incredibly flat. So there are ways to do it. It's probably going to cost too much money. So let's just remove foils. Nobody wants them. Get rid of them. I wish they would go hardcore. Get rid of regulars as well. Now, if we change these things, right? Add some new variants to regular boxes, maybe increase showcase rate, remove foils, you're going to also need to change things in the Carbonites as well. And that's going to bring us to the 4th unforced error, which is that Carbonite boxes have an inherent problem. And that inherent problem is 1 prestige card per pack. Making 1 prestige card per pack was a terrible, terrible decision. Some longtime listeners to this channel that have watched a bunch of my videos, you might be thinking, is this video just you saying I told you so? And yes, it kind of is, because a lot of this stuff in the design phase of the product was obvious. Now, why was 1 prestige card per pack a terrible decision? It was terrible because it means there's going to be a lot of prestige cards. This is the one unique thing for Carbonites. In my video talking about Carbonite packs a few months ago, it was very easy to call that there'd be too many tier 1s for them to make any impact in the space. And now the numbers are in. So the average tier 1 prestige is $5.34. The average tier 2 price is $9.03. But again, the value is not the only problem. It is also psychological. The one cool thing about Carbonites, prestiges, if you have 1 in every single pack, they're just not special anymore. Even hitting a tier 2 is not that special for a lot of people, especially when you only get 4 tier 2s on average in a box. I would argue it's the top thing you're supposed to get guaranteed in a box, right? Showcases are not guaranteed. Serials are definitely not guaranteed, right? But you are guaranteed to get at least 3 to 4 tier 2s, right? These are supposed to be the big box hits, and yet they feel terrible. And that is because there's too many of them. Even compared to Magic, for collector boxes in Magic, the exclusive variants are never one per pack. Because even in Magic, they know that these special variants in the collector packs still need to be hard to get so that they are worth money, so that they are exciting to get. Now, that is supposed to be what the serialized cards are, but there's such a cavern between nothing and serialized cards to be excited about in this game. Maybe showcases. People are still excited about showcases, but as we've already said, the value of those have tanked significantly because of the Carbonites. But the main problem here is that it was incredibly obvious. The only reason why they do one prestige card per pack is because they had no other options, right? This was the only extra variant that they put in the box. Why did they did that? I don't know. Unforced error, right? Because Asmodee tried to copy Magic's homeworks because they wanted to copy the Magic profit, but they fundamentally just don't understand why Magic collector boxes work the way that they do. Never mind that collector boxes have reprint value, which Star Wars lacks, right? You can charge $250 a box for a collector box because a big portion of that is reprints. But let's pretend that doesn't matter. Collector boxes also have a lot of other variants that you can get. Some say it might be too many, but there are a lot of other variants that they can get. And even in regular play booster boxes, there are more options to get. For example, if we look at the latest Magic the Gathering set, here's a checklist between what you can get in a regular booster box, a play box, versus a collector booster. Look how many different things you can get in a collector box compared to a play box. But there is still fun stuff that you can get in a play booster box, right? In Star Wars, the only fun thing you can get is a showcase. Here's the set before that. There's less fun stuff, but the same point still stands, right? Same with Aether Drift, the set before that. Now, how can we fix Carbonite boxes? There are so many different things we can do, but within the framework of what Carbonites currently are, right? Now, I would change a whole lot of other stuff, but within the framework of what they're doing right now, they can remove Prestige Tier 1s. Make it so that the only Prestige card that you can hit is a tier 2, and it's still kind of hard to hit. That's a hard to swallow in a world where there's no additional variants. I totally understand that. I wish they would put in additional variants. I don't know. I would much prefer that those tier 1s didn't even exist. I know a lot of people like them. I do think making it so like Magic, you can get them in regular boosters, but you just get them in higher frequency in Carbonites makes a lot of sense. Definitely decrease the total number of serialized cards from 9,000 to probably 1,000 to 2,000. I've spoken a lot about the serialized cards. We're not going to talk about that much in this one, but I think it's very, very obvious that they needed to print this many because this was their big thing, and they didn't want to make it so that you only get one serialized out of every 50 boxes like maybe Magic does. But I think where it sits now, it's still really hard to hit a serialized, and they're not really even worth that much money. Another thing that they can do, of course, I already mentioned, is decrease the hit rate of the showcases while also increasing the hit rate in regular boxes. So remove Prestige Tier 1s, decrease the total number of serialized so that they're going to be worth a lot more, make them much harder to hit, and decrease the hit rate of showcases. And again, you're like, well, doesn't that just make it so it's really hard to hit anything? Yes, and that is why you need more stuff to hit. And there is so much stuff that they could do, right? You can add another format, like a Carbonite card, which uses a cold foil technique. To be honest, that's what I thought they would do. I thought that's why they called them Carbonite editions. They were going to use this cold foiling technique that Flesh and Blood uses, Magic uses, Lorcana uses, right? It really makes sense for ships to be like that. But even though I think the raised foil does look nice, a cold foil Devastator would have looked absolutely disgustingly awesome if they did that, right? But add another format. It could be exclusive, it could be not, but another format would have been great. They could add a higher tier of showcases. Maybe they're 10 times harder to hit, but only Carbonites can get them, right? Maybe they have signatures on them. Maybe it's a sketch card. Maybe it's, I don't know, just some other tier of showcases even if they're just leaders, you can make them look cooler. You could also add showcase bases, as I mentioned earlier, showcase other cards, right? It is cool that they're adding all of these new formats for judges and for cons. Like, those cards are cool. But what blows my mind is that they are not prioritizing cool stuff for their main products first, right? I know judges are important, way more important than the con stuff personally, but it just doesn't make sense to me why they don't add that cool, like, they don't prioritize that cool stuff for their Carbonites and for their regular booster boxes. Like, there are more variants for judges than there are for Carbonites. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me, right? So take whoever's leading that charge, have them make a bunch of cool stuff for Carbonites first. The product needs to be better first. In an ideal world, everybody's happy and everyone's getting cool stuff. I just think it's crazy that they're not prioritizing regular boxes first. Now, didn't I just complain, though, about having too many formats? I know somebody's writing that comment, right? Yes, in an ideal world, yes, I did say that there were already too many formats, but what I'm suggesting, these additional formats, much like Magic cards, they are hard to hit. To get a Carbonite card, there might only be 3 in a box, right? To get this higher tier showcase, I mean, that's 1 in every 40 boxes, right? That could be really hard to get. Adding in 2 or 3 other variants from the judge team or the con team, right? And again, when I mention that, I don't mean we should have the same thing as the judges do or the same thing that the cons do. I'm just saying there should be additional formats that are cool like those are in the regular boxes, right? I hope you understand what I mean. But in an ideal world, we are removing, right, regular cards or at least foils, right? We're drilling down to 2, and all the other formats are harder to hit. It's not a prestige in every pack, right? We're not getting flooded with 1 million prestige tier 1 cards. So you are adding more formats, but the overall amount of cool cards in the pool is still significantly lower than prestige tier 1s and prestige tier 2s, right? This keeps things from flooding the market, right? But allowing you to have cool things to hit, right? Like, imagine if you open a booster box, you have a chance to hit a Carbonite card, a prestige tier 1, and a showcase, right? But in a Carbonite box, you have a chance to hit 6 different things, right? Like, now this is a very specific gripe, right? Because I am a breaker on Whatnot, right? This is a very breaker-centric gripe. But for Star Wars, even for regular boxes, right? If you're breaking boxes for people and somebody sees that you hit a showcase, everybody's like, oh, well, I don't really want to buy anymore, right? I wouldn't either. As a buyer, I wouldn't either. And that's because there's only really one thing people want to hit. When there are 4 or 5 or 6 different things that people want, that's going to make them buy more. And that is what you want in a game. You want people to buy more stuff. I don't mean me. I know someone's going to read this and saying, he just wants to make more money. And I do want to make more money, but this is overall better for everybody because everybody gets to make more money. Stores get to make more money. That's good. You might be able to get more value out of your cards, which is good because there's so many players in this game that just want the cheapest version of the card. Well, guess what? If you open a box and the value is good, you might be able to sell those cards you don't want to use and buy a whole bunch of cards that you want to use, right? Value is good in this ecosystem. It is what makes TCGs TCGs. Now, there are so many things that could happen, but what is important to understand is that something needs to change, right? Something needs to change with these Carbonites. 1 prestige per pack is, you can see the consequences so clearly. All the value is still funneled in to the 2 big cards, right? Like a showcase or a cereal, and everything else is just peanuts, right? Like, maybe there's a tier 2 Devastator in there. Maybe there's a tier 2 Sabines that is decent, of course, but like, imagine a world where there's much more to hit, and that is what they should have done to start with. It is actually incredible hubris of them to launch Carbonite boxes with only one unique card. And I want to talk about that later on as well. Okay, now there is one last unforced error, and that is the showcase face art issue. All right. I think most people will agree. I think this might be kind of harsh, but showcases are some of the ugliest and most boring top hit in any modern game. Right now, there are some showcases that are good. And I get that art is subjective, but even the best showcases, in my personal opinion, still pair in comparison to some of the coolest shit that I've seen in One Piece, or the coolest cards I've seen in Flesh and Blood, or the coolest cards I've seen in Magic or Sorcery. Like, showcases kind of suck. Now, for me personally, there are 3 fundamental issues with showcases. The first one being the faces, which is the most obvious, but it's also the framing and the treatment. Now, prestige cards show that FFG can make good art. Their problem has always been faces, and the showcases are the epitome of this. They have this problem with this uncanny valley of the art, right? They kind of want to make it look like the actor, but it's not really correct. And also, if it doesn't look like the actor, it feels weird, right? And this is a problem with your card game being centered on real life people, right? Something that Magic doesn't really have to deal with, or an anime game doesn't really have to deal with, or a unique IP doesn't have to deal with, right? Like, I get that it is kind of hard in this scenario, but it does show that FFG can make good art. But again, I don't think this is one person's fault or anything like that. Like, if you get, a Meth Man Han Solo on an uncommon of your card, or a Snap Wexley on a rare, like, that sucks. But my God, showcases should have as much effort put into them as they are putting into the prestiges, right? Showcases are still worth more than what a tier 1 or tier 2 prestige card is worth, right? It's crazy to me that they are okay with the status quo of showcase art. Now, the other big issue with the showcase is that they're kind of limited, right? They've pigeonholed themselves into making them all leaders. So that means they have to show off the leader. So it needs to show the character very close up, right? So you see their details, but it's always the same thing. It's just the character looking left, looking right, looking in the middle. And more often than not, the background has to be really boring. Some of the backgrounds are just like brown doo-doo water. Like, it's crazy to me how boring a lot of the showcases are when there are so many cool things that you can do, right? In one of my other videos, I showed there's a Weiss Japanese set for Star Wars that has come out. It has some cool, interesting variants there. There's a lot of cool things that you can do with the framing, but unfortunately, I think they've kind of pigeonholed themselves into how they are right now. And the third thing is that the treatment. The DNA strand foiling is okay, but you can even see this in prestige cards as well, right? Prestige tier 2s, they share the same DNA strand foiling, is that when the background color is kind of dark, you just don't see the foiling very well. There are so many cool things that they can do with the foiling. Again, look at any Japanese game. Look at the crazy cool foiling techniques that they can do. Or you can look at a Western game like Flesh and Blood and look at the crazy Marvel foiling that they do in some of their cards. Like, it's possible. But the showcases just utilize it incredibly tame, and oftentimes you can't even see type of foiling, and that really sucks as well. So together, all of these issues combine to make the showcases just really meh, really boring to me. I truly believe that a lot of Star Wars fans have been conditioned with boring movie stills and bad art that they really don't know what's possible in the holistic TCG space. Now, again, art is subjective. I know there's a lot of people that are maybe fine with showcase art, but I really hope that Set 4 has shown what is possible. They could do so much more with the art. How do we fix showcases? As I just said, showcases are still there. They're still important. They're still worth a lot of money, but they can be better. Please don't forget about showcases now that the prestige cards are out. Showcase art could be way more dramatic. The deployed side could be a close-up of the hero, but the horizontal side could be an awesome action scene, an iconic action scene, right? It could be badass. There could be really awesome foiling on the lightsaber for some of them, right? Or the blaster on some of the blaster shots from other people, right? It should make people from across the room look over and be like, damn, that is what the top hit of your TCG should do. The foiling should be way more noticeable. You could use cold foiling. You can use fractured foiling. You can even use the raised texture that the serialized uses. Pretty much take what you learn for prestiges, do some cool shit for the showcases. Now, the showcase issue here has made me really, really worried about the set 5 prestige cards. But remember, I wrote most of this a month ago. They have actually already spoiled some of the prestige cards. And let's take a look at some of them. So here we have Darth Malik. This art looks really good. I really, really like this. I think this is really good. But I also personally think that this is what the regular art should be more like just in general. But I am happy at least they put a lot of effort into this, right? Here's some other ones. This is Gungi. I don't really know who this is. Not a huge fan of... I actually think the Wookiee art looks great. I'm not a huge fan of the kind of golden color in the empty box. Like I think they should have figured something out for the empty box. But either way, but let's look at some more. We got Marin here. We got these 3 people. I think that the actual character art does look decent. Now, are a lot of these pictures aliens and or people with masks on? Yes. I guess we'll see what it looks like for some of the people without masks. But I think this art is pretty good. This is like what I wanted. I was hoping it would be. I think the background's not my favorite. I think like the Darth Malik background is so cool. I don't know why the rest have just a foggy, like a foggy generic background. I'm assuming it's because Darth Malik is a legendary. That would be my guess, while the rest are uncommons and rares. That's my hope. But for a prestige card, the rarity shouldn't matter. They should all be fucking bangers because they all show up at the same rarity. I'll have more to say about this, but I am less concerned about the prestige art of people's faces. But again, I do think that this level of love should also be present in showcases as well. As I mentioned before, this is a long video. We've talked about 5 kind of unforced errors, 5 things that they set up of their own free will that I don't think has panned out, but I do have some extra tangents, all right? And the first extra tangent is about the price. Carbonite packs should never have been $25. It never makes sense for them to be $25, and it was pure greed by Asmodee to set them at $25, especially when you compare what's inside a Magic collector box and what's inside a Star Wars collector box. There should have been a massive uproar about the price, but Asmodee has laughed all the way to the bank. So many people bought them. I sold a bunch of them. Like, oftentimes these videos that I make goes against me selling this product, right? Or goes against what I should believe as a seller of this product. But there should have been a big uproar about this price. As mentioned before, Magic has a lot of extra reasons to quote unquote justify the price that collector boxes are. Now, of course, even Magic players still think it's too expensive for certain collector boxes, but Magic boxes have more exclusive formats. They have an established collector market of 20 plus years. There are so many additional things in a Magic collector box to justify that price that Star Wars is not even close to. But we all bought it up, no problem. I think it's actually crazy. I do think that a lot less boxes will be open per person for the next set. This is also something I mentioned in a video before. A lot of people are always hyped about the first version of the product. A lot of people opened up way too much. I saw that firsthand. I experienced it myself. But once all the cards were opened, people realized that if they just waited a little bit, you can see the EV of the box drop massively. You can see the demand for certain cards be a lot less than a lot of people thought. They are probably still going to sell a lot, but I think especially for the dolphins and the whales, they're going to open much less per person. Now, just like in everything in real life, I can see them adding some more stuff and then saying it's going to be more expensive, and I'm going to have a problem with that too. But it's actually crazy to me how little uproar. Well, it's actually crazy to me how little uproar there is in general for Star Wars. Like, there's a lot of uproar for balanced stuff. There's a lot of uproar for competitive stuff, but you can see how different the audience is for Star Wars Unlimited compared to a lot of different games based off of the commentary of the games. So, in conclusion, this is just a fraction of what FFG could do to make the overall economy of the game better, right? Make regular booster boxes better, which is going to help with the price of all the cards. It's going to help stores make a little bit more money. It's going to make you spending money on those cards feel a lot better. I know many Star Wars Unlimited fans don't care about this stuff. They just are players. They want the cheapest way to play the game as possible, but it is undeniable. It is a fact that all the games that last a good chunk of time are games with a healthy ecosystem of collectors. Players are important, but collectors are essential. There are so many gigantic ecosystems of just collectors because they keep things running. As much as you hate it, players, value matters. It's in the DNA of a TCG. Now, there are cons to that as well. For example, how crazy it is with Pokemon right now, and scalpers and investors and evil people. Like, yes, that also can happen. That is also bad. Again, I know this is the internet. It's not all A and it's not all B. There is a good mix in the middle. And for me, why do I make this video? I did delay it a month, but there are hundreds of channels dedicated to the balance of the game, the competitive portion of the game, brand new news about the game. But I swear, maybe I'm wrong. Send me people to check out, send me videos to check out. But nobody really talks about the actual production of the game, the ramifications of a lot of these problems and decisions. And so sometimes I feel like I just need to be that person to do it. Let me know what you think FFG could do. There were probably 4 or 5 things that I cut out of this video. I don't even know how long this video is going to be. I think it's going to be incredibly long and nobody's going to make it till the end. So if you do make it till the end, thank you so very much. Write down in the comments, hashtag value, okay? Hashtag value. Do it for me. Thank you so very much. I don't know when I'll make another video, but I hope that it is soon. Don't forget, of course, to like the video, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and also check out my Whatnot stream. It's linked in the description below. If you're brand new, you can get $15 for using my link, and I would love to see you when Set 5 releases. Until the next time, bye.